Do make sure to be careful, would you?
I can't believe this. I say I'll send whatever resources he wants, and the first thing that worthless commander does is order 150 full-length mirrors?
Actually, that was a compromise down from 200.
Oh, I do hope he included high quality in the request description. Low-tier mirrors simply won't do.
They're Missilus-made mirrors. Of course they're the very best. Hey, Ingrid's little red pet, are you gonna help me move these?
Nope. In fact, I believe the resource request was for SYUEN to, quote, hand-deliver all items to Reclamation Site 01 without any outside assistance.
Why would that madman even select that checkbox? Why is that even a checkbox on the order form?
You think he put in the order?
While my commander is a man of many sexy skills, filling out paperwork is absolutely not one of them.
It was you! You're a villain!
Oh, she's no villain. I should know. Until just moments ago, I was one of the great villains in this story.
Oh please, you're nothing compared to me.
You, a villain? I've killed hundreds of my fellow Nikkes, and likely several humans as well.
Hundreds? I call that a slow year in my Nikke school.
Hell, her stupidity has indirectly killed thousands of humans this year alone. Which was the better part of your plan, SYUEN? Pissing off a mentally unstable masochist by mind-wiping her girlfriend? Or trying to make your own discount suicide squad led by a literal terrorist?
Was SYUEN at least Amanda Waller from Justice League Unlimited levels of competent in building her terrorist team?
No, she was more like Amanda Waller from Suicide Squad kills the Justice League levels of incompetent.
How dare you compare me to that?
Seriously, Neon? Even SYUEN doesn't deserve to be insulted like that.
It seems my understanding of villainy may be a bit out of date after 100 years of beauty sleep. Perhaps you three could catch me up.
Well, I have mission reports we could review, starting with the Lord Class Raptures we...
No. Reports are drab and boring, and certainly not beautiful. I have been told by Neon that what is truly beautiful to the one true god of this era, a beast called the Algorithm, are tier lists. So, I would request you instruct me in the ranking of villains with this most beautiful method.
What?
Yay!
We'll be ranking the villains in the Nikke story so far. By villains, we don't just mean enemies of the arc, but really any major antagonists who stand in the way of the commander's goals and who he must overcome. We won't be including characters who are only temporarily hostile, due to a misunderstanding or because of orders from their superiors. This means my most precious audience, Grave, will not be on the list, nor will the members of Triangle or Perilous Siege. We also won't be counting most subordinates, like Viper and Jackal. Rankings will be based on how interesting a villain's personality and story is, their impact on the overall plot, and how well they fill the antagonist archetype.
What's going on? Where did that come from? Hey Red, does this thing happen a lot with you?
You have no idea. Well, we might as well start from the beginning with the most kickable member of the big three, SYUEN.
You broke 3 of my ribs!
I know! If only she aimed a little higher, she could have gotten 4.
I'm confused. Who is the villain here?
Well, I prefer misunderstood visionary prodigy. I suppose to simpletons I could be considered a villain. And given that I excel at everything, I would obviously be an S-tier villain as well.
As much as I hate to rank you highly in anything, I'm forced to reluctantly agree. SYUEN has been, at times, more openly hostile to the commander and his mission than the literal genocidal murder robots. Her impact on the story is almost unrivaled by any other individual character.
And thanks to side content like Laplace's favorite item story, the April Fool's Day event, and of course the legendary Miracle Snow epilogue, we get to see she's more than a simple mustache-twirling stereotype.
This will probably be the only time these words will ever leave my mouth, so enjoy them while you can. SYUEN, you go in S tier.
What a magnificent example of villainy. Truly, beauty can come in many forms, even flat ones.
What did you say? I'll have you know the fanbase has been wanting to correct me since before you were even...
Moving on to our first Rapture villain, and the one with by far the most screen time, it's CHATTERBOX.
Oh, even I've heard of this one. In my sleep, Grave and Behemoth would talk about how he started out as such a great villain.
It's true! The first unique Rapture introduced! He schemed with Enoch behind everyone's back and is apparently planning to overthrow the Rapture Queen and install Modernia as the new one. His motivations are both interesting and kicked off the first story arc of the game.
There was one thing both Grave and Behemoth never understood in all their discussions about CHATTERBOX, though.
What's that?
How is he still alive?
Yeah, Red, why is he still alive? I've read your mission reports, and I swear, he's definitely been blown up enough times to be dead like 3 times over.
First off, those are classified, but I guess I shouldn't expect you to follow any rules. Second, that is sort of the problem with his character. He started out as this big bad, but has become just a character that gets beat up by others to show how powerful a new character is. While his absorption of parts of NIHILISTER to give him a power-up foreshadows interesting things in his future, the fact he just keeps coming back only to get beat up again bumps him down to A tier.
Well, speaking of Modernia, since she is the main heroine and obvious final villain of the Nikke story, she must be S tier, right, Red? Red?
I know you're just trying to rile me up by saying she's the main heroine, but I know for a fact you would never consider anyone but yourself to be the most important character in, well, anything.
Guilty as charged. Truthfully, as a villain, Modernia is actually pretty mediocre. Aside from pulling at the heartstrings by being Marion, what does she really have to offer as a villain? What was her motivation? Prior to being reset, she was just a powerful, generic heretic. And after the reset, she's not even a villain.
Well, not a villain yet, but she's definitely taking steps back towards that ugly road of villainy, especially at the end of the Crown event.
She's D tier. All she has is the emotional impact of her identity and her future potential to be something better. Aside from that, she's done nothing impressively villainy.
Now for the first human on the list, Burningham. This will be the most controversial ranking by far.
S tier.
What? Did being on ice for a century break your brain?
Actually, speaking from Red Hood's memories, being put on ice for the better part of a century actually fixes brain problems. Somehow. Also, Burningham has done almost as much as you to thwart the commander, from sending Triangle and Perilous Siege to retrieve Marion, to spying on Eden, and even negotiating a backroom deal with Dorothy.
But he's just a stuttering loser.
Somebody missed the conversation between him and Dorothy in chapter 26, where he has his epic Grand Maester Pycelle moment.
His what?
It's a Game of Thrones reference. The point is, his stuttering and whole timid persona are fake. Dorothy calls him out for pretending to be weak so others will let their guard down. He's actually one of the most competent schemers in the entire arc, being able to seemingly go toe-to-toe with Dorothy.
And he's incredibly strong-willed. Despite being beaten to a pulp by Anderson, Burningham still defiantly refuses to give up on his mission. I'm calling it now. If any non-Rapture ends up killing Anderson, it will likely be Burningham. S tier.
Silly Neon. I may only mentally be a week old, but even I know ShiftUp is too scared to ever kill off any main character, no matter how much they deserve it. Like the next villain on the list, Crow.
Ugh, my biggest mistake.
That's debatable.
Why you?
If all it takes was being hated to be a good villain, Crow would be super duper ultra S tier. But you know, like a real S tier, not a Pridewin tier list S tier, which is basically every single new character.
Her motivations and lack of a clear goal really bring her down. She talks like she's some deep character with a complex philosophy and mission, like Ducat from Season 5 of DS9, when really she's more like a cartoon villain, like Ducat from Season 7 of DS9.
Did someone mention Ducat? Here's my list of 100 reasons why he's the best Star Trek villain. Number 1, in Sacrifice of Angels, he...
I thought I banned Export from the server after her last attempt to turn this into a Star Trek-focused YouTube channel.
From the sounds of it, Crow ranks in A tier for being an extreme jerk without substance, unlike the next villain, Dorothy.
The most tragic of all villains.
Is my shameful fall into the hideous taint of villainy not the most tragic?
You were bad for like a week and then took a century-long nap. No, as much as I mock all Nikkes as buckets of bolts, even I have to admit Dorothy's fall is iconic.
Forced to take up the mantle of leader after her friends died. Well, kinda died. And then made to execute the girl she swore to protect, plus surviving for a century on the surface while being fueled purely by a desire for revenge. She is as complex and sympathetic as villains come, easily the top of S tier.
It sure seems like the early villains were beautiful examples of villainy. I wonder if that will continue with this next villain, NIHILISTER.
Meh, she's okay.
Honestly, she feels like more of a plot device to introduce Eden and some backstory on the Rapture Queen than anything else.
And being arguably the most disappointing unit ever released doesn't exactly help. C tier for a good design and interesting contribution to the lore. Also, her getting betrayed by CHATTERBOX was certainly one of the most incredibly gruesome CGs in the game.
I suppose a sicko like you would like that CG. Now, for the least important villain in the game, Liberalia.
Cinderella, did Behemoth ever mention anything about her? We haven't seen any mention of Liberalio since she saved NIHILISTER like a million chapters ago.
Sometimes, the less you see, the more beautiful something can be. Mystery breeds excitement. Therefore, Liberalio must be the most beautiful character in the game, because there's absolutely nothing there to analyze. F tier.
Did she just burn Liberalio?
Well, the next character might not be the most beautiful, but her design is super cool. It's
H. Does she count as a villain?
SYUEN, I know it took you 24 chapters to learn this, but terrorism is bad. Before her falling out with Crow, EH was responsible for many acts of violence against innocents. While she doesn't have any interaction with the commander in the main story, her backstory alone puts her solidly in the villain category.
A character whose entire backstory is relegated to obscure lore tidbits? I like her.
She has the potential to be an interesting character in the future once Ingrid gets around to turning her into a Nikke, but so far she's actually pretty irrelevant. She's more a supporting character in a bunch of other people's stories than a main character herself. D tier.
Tell me, are all the deputy chiefs aside from Anderson evil? As this one, DOBAN, is the second one to make the list.
Everyone involved with the central government is evil. If that commander of yours was worth anything, he'd have taught you that as lesson 1.
I mean, you're not wrong. Although I'm pretty sure you hate the central government because they're the only thing standing in the way of you doing even more evil stuff.
Standing in the way? You realize they help fund half of it, right? I was mostly referring to Anak as being a huge thorn in my side.
We'll get to her later. But back to DOBAN. He is the definition of a dumb muscle man. The picture of your average, generic villain. If he was a D&D alignment chart, he'd be incompetent evil. C tier.
Oh, it's finally my time to take the spotlight. Quickly, SYUEN, bring me one of those mirrors so I can make sure my appearance is perfect as we finally rank me, or at least my hideous villain self, ANACHIRO.
I mentioned this earlier, but exactly what makes ANACHIRO a good villain? Sure, she managed to doom humanity by screwing up the whole space elevator operation, but she didn't even understand what she was doing. And her total screen time consists of like 5 minutes during the Red Hood event.
Yeah, ANACHIRO didn't have any compelling motivation or tragic backstory or really anything going on. In fact, even Liberalia had more lines than her. She was more a MacGuffin than a real character.
I am so conflicted right now. I simultaneously want to put ANACHIRO in S tier for how much I hate her. But if I think about it objectively, outside of the tiny story bits in Memory of Goddess, she barely even counts as a real character. I know I said putting BURNINGUM in S tier was the most controversial decision, but I think this might actually be the most controversial ranking.
Yes, do it. Put my hideous, corrupted self in F tier.
Did you guys feel that? It's like almost 5,000 subscribers suddenly screamed in unison at their screens. The export has the worst Nikke takes in the entire community, which obviously isn't true because PrideWin exists.
Jesus, Neon, if you throw any more shade on PrideWin, people are going to start thinking Export and SkyJOV are the same person. Let's just move on before the hate comments flow in. We're getting near the end with Indivilia.
Hey, it's someone whose ego might actually be bigger than SYUEN's.
Getting knocked over by Crown's attack once was funny. Having it happen a second time was just embarrassing. That isn't to say she isn't very evil. Her sadistic taunting of her foes definitely gets her lots of points in the evil category.
Earlier, you said CHATTERBOX had gone from threatening villain to punching bag over the course of dozens of chapters. But from what I understand, Indivilia managed to do that far quicker.
I mean, now that you mention it, she did go from cutting off Anise and just Anise's head, to getting clobbered by my Red Hood form in the span of a few seconds. And she went from torturing Chime to getting repeatedly humiliated by Crown in the same event. She really is speedrunning becoming Nikke's next punching bag.
Her evil, twisted personality keeps her in the higher tiers, but she is too much of an anime villain for her own good. B tier.
Speaking of anime villain personalities, now for a villain I have personal experience with, Behemoth.
Okay, Red, explain this to me. If a freshly awakened Cinderella, who is weaker than ANACHIRO, can almost beat Behemoth, and we know from Red Ash that Red Hood can beat ANACHIRO, then why did you get absolutely crushed by Behemoth if you're supposed to be stronger than Red Hood due to your combined course?
Well, that's because, hey, yeah, why did I lose?
Because power scaling in this universe makes no sense.
Oh yeah, that.
Back to Behemoth. She is in many ways like Indivilia. The same sadistic tactics, although this time with crystals instead of alpha particles. And she hints at a complex relationship with the other 4 beasts, which is more interesting than Indivilia's strange partnership with CHATTERBOX.
Again, she has a little too much anime villain going on with her personality, constantly letting the heroes get away just so the plot can continue. And while her chapters were dramatic, I'd say Indivilia is the more beloved villain. I'll put her just below Scorpion Mommy in B tier.
Now for some honorable mentions before we get to the final big 2.
Well, they're less honorable mentions and more explanations why they aren't being counted as villains.
Who's first? Huh? Ether? How dare you insult one of my best employees?
Grave gave me this image to represent Ether.
Yeah, that's about right. She's constantly on the borderline of becoming a villain, but the latest Schoolgirls event lands her solidly in the not villain category. Second is Nikke. Like Ether, while she's done some evil things, and could certainly fall to the dark side eventually, as of now, she's still done more to help the commander than stand in his way. Plus, it's hard to hate her after she put a leash on SYUEN, although her failing to turn SYUEN into a Nikke is reason enough for the fanbase to call ENIC a villain.
And finally, Oswald. Check out the Nikke conspiracy theory tier list on the channel for a longer explanation. But there's a lot of reason to believe Oswald was actually helping the Goddess Squad and isn't a villain.
And now for the final big two. First, the evil that corrupted my perfect form into a heretic. The monster who pushed humanity to the brink of extinction. The enigmatic Rapture Queen.
I mean, she's got to be S tier, right? She is the ultimate villain of the story.
Not counting theories about her origin that would open a whole other can of worms. The issue with the Rapture Queen as a villain is that she's not even really a character. She's more a force of nature. It's like labeling a hurricane or a plague a villain. We've had no interaction with her and have no understanding of her motivations, if she even has any. We don't even know the purpose of stealing Lilywise's head.
Are you seriously going to put the main villain of the entire Nikke story in low tier? What are you thinking? C? D?
I'll put her in S tier if you can answer this one question. What is her goal?
Well, you see, fan theories suggest...
No, not fan theories, not vague actions by other characters that may or may not be acting on her orders. What is her actual goal? In fact, name one thing, anything about her character that isn't she controls the Raptures and stole Lilywise's head.
Oh my god! She really is F tier!
Rappy, I think he just broke SYUEN's brain.
A broken brain. I certainly know what that feels like. Well, I suppose there's only one villain left. You actually just alluded to them with your comment about the real origin of the Rapture Queen. The final villain we're covering today is the central government.
S tier.
Hey look, her brain got fixed.
While we've already established why you hate the central government, SYUEN, I'll give a brief list of the real reasons the central government can be considered a villain. First, there's like a 50-50 chance they created the Raptures. Second, there's very strong evidence they are intentionally not trying to win the war because they want to maintain power. Third, they condone by inaction and sometimes direct action horrible crimes against Nikkes, the Outer Rim, and their own citizens. And that doesn't even get into all the speculation on what the Ark's power source is and all the evil that must involve. The central government has the potential to be the biggest villain in the entire game.
The potential, yes, but much of what you just listed is conjecture and fan theories. As they are right now in the story, it is possible the central government are more incompetent and corrupt than pure evil. Time will tell. Although the fact that almost all of their leadership we've seen outside of Anderson are either dumb or heartless evil schemers doesn't bode well. For now, the central government ranks an A tier.
Oh god, my spine! I can't carry any more of these mirrors. Call Matisse. Save me, Laplace.
And that's it for the tier list. Share your ideas for any future tier lists or videos.
Hit the like button, check out the other tier lists and fan songs on the channel, and share the video around. It really helps.
And most importantly, don't forget to subscribe for more Nikke content. See you next time, Commander.
My brain is thirsty, just give me a reason. Don't dare betray this witch of Eden.